I'm a former journalist that spent 20 years building a communications company around the world, 750 people in 27 offices, and Lewis is now the largest employee communications company in the world. As to my Twitter handle, so I've always shied away from the pomposity of the Chief Executive Officer title. I've never really felt I was quite up to that level of bureaucratic leadership. So my real title in the company is the Grand Enchilada. And because I couldn't find Grand Enchilada on Twitter, it was taken. I had to make do with Large Burrito. I don't think it would come as any surprise to somebody listening in on this conversation that they're slightly busier this year than they were the last year, and probably busier the last year than they were 5. The digital tools are there as our servant. The iPhone, it's only 10 years old, and it's there to serve us. We are not there to serve it. One thing that we've all become aware of is the torrent of information. I have 400 RSS feeds coming in. I follow almost 1,000 journalists around the world from different titles. There is never a moment at any hour of the 24 hours where I cannot be seeing personalized information sent through to me to build up a global view. The problem with all of that is that one can find oneself completely distracted by story after story after story after story, to the point where one loses fluency on the actual subject you're supposed to be considering. The reason I wrote this book was because I could see that we have a lot more graduates around now in journalism. We have a lot more graduates in communications. And one of the things that graduates are very good at is analyzing, comparing, and contrasting information. They're not so good at joining the dots. So they're good at analysis, but they're not very good at parenthesis. Well, because they've trained for 20 years to analyze things. In the Western reductionist tradition, they do a degree in a subject and then they break it down into sub-areas. And yet we've got more analysts and more information now than we've ever had before from a research and analytical point of view. This year, 2 of the greatest surprises that nobody saw coming. Despite all the research, we were told that Donald Trump didn't have a chance in America and he became president. We were told that Brexit wouldn't happen because the British government, of course, would not hold a referendum that truly could lead to people deciding something unexpected. So one of the things that I think that we're becoming is very much concerned with information that relates to us. Google recognizes it and serves us more information related to us, and we go around in a spiral into more and more analysis of specialist subject area, and missing out on things that are beyond that, such as other people's opinions with whom we may not agree. So it depends what our jobs are. Most of the jobs in the tertiary economy, especially in the communications area, are about ideas. Ideas come from people being able to commune with the subject area in enough solitude for the information to be able to come to them. And in Too Fast to Think, I took deliberately interviews with military leaders, with politicians, business people, artists, film directors, academics, philosophers, and even clergy, to look at, to ask them a question: where are they and what are they doing when they get their best ideas, the ideas that advance humanity? The result was striking. They all said, I'm never at work, I'm always alone, and I'm never trying. When we are overloaded with information, we're trying to keep up. And yet it's in the moments of solitude and quietness when our subconsciouses come back with the answer to a problem. The gaps that we have in this overload and noise are becoming so infrequent that one must conclude that the level of ideas and conceptualization that's going on is also diminishing. And so the rise in information obesity and the digital overload is beginning to erode our fundamental, innate ability to solve problems. Yes, you're looking at it. I'm a workaholic and news junkie. The natural effect upon it is to feel like you don't have enough hours in the day, to find it very difficult to balance your home life and your work life. And now you can gorge on news 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. And so that's very bad for people because it doesn't allow you to spend the time processing and really digesting the information. So one of the things you see is people living for the next headline. So politicians making decisions because they want the best headline for the next day. They're not thinking about the term, and they're not thinking about what's truly good for people and what's the right decision to make, rather than what is the most popular decision to make. You have to separate out the illusion of speed with the actuality of speed. And if you're zigzagging, you can feel like you're moving very quickly. And that's wonderful. That gives you the conceit of speed. When in reality, if you had a better idea and then you pursued it more at a more even pace, you'd actually get there faster. I'm all in favor of efficiency, but I'm not in favor of the illusion of efficiency. And the illusion of efficiency is people being at work 18 hours a day, looking like they're busy. But in reality, most of us now are paid to come up with really good solutions to problems. And you don't do that by working your way through the to-do list. Here's a great experiment. We can all do this, and we can do it in the next couple of hours. Let's just switch off our email for 45 minutes, quit the email application, switch the phone off, and let's see what happens. The world will just continue on its sweet course for another 45 minutes until you've had a chance to look at your emails. And that would give you a chance to be able to relax and to consider a problem more thoroughly. So when you're doing nothing, you're doing quite a lot. One of the clergy in the book said to me something quite interesting. He said that young people these days are surrounded by communications, which makes them experts on communications, but they're very bad at conversation. And if you can't converse, you can't negotiate, you can't solve emotional relationships, you can't talk problems out with a friend. The human being has only two conditions: that you're either communicating or you're listening. To me, social media is a listening tool, but so many people use social media as a tannoy system just to communicate more with other people, when in reality, it's far more interesting to listen. And the multiplicity of channels also allows you not just to listen to other people, but it allows you to get an insight. I'm all in favor of social media. It brings people together, but I also think that Twitter has become a very difficult place for children and for women and sometimes for elderly people, because it's so opinionated and it's very fierce. People are disinhibited on social media, and they say things in social media that they would never dream of saying in conversation. If you look at the millennial generation over the last 10 years since the iPhone appeared, the level of conversation has really suffered. Switch it off, go for a walk, take an hour off, go and get some fresh air, do something more interesting than staring at your screen, and recognize that actually your subconscious and your brain is far more powerful in terms of the imagination and ability than any amount of social media. There is still something that human beings can do which will never be replicated by artificial intelligence or by machine language. And that is the recognition of patterns. Computers cannot listen to music, cannot see a painting, cannot hear a political speech, cannot see a vista and join them all together in a collective narrative. Human beings make sense of the world through a narrative, and that's because they have the ability to recognize patterns and to recognize metaphor. And one of the things that really makes our life so much richer is where we make a metaphor for some image in a painting or a piece of music. I've never come across anybody who's had an inability to use metaphor and not been happy. And if you believe in training people to get to their real potential, we have to remember that all competence follows preference.